I'm made to understand that some of you are not in existence at that time. So I'm really feeling very well. I joined by then what was called School of Social Cultural Studies. It had social studies, business and economics. Then to the second year, that place was opened, School of Business, and we were moved there. So as in Ambiwa, you kicked out my grandchildren from the main campus. The business is no longer here. See there? Here they're in Alex. Yes, I was here 2001, I graduated in 2005. Been out there since then. Allow me to extend my gratitude to the leadership for inviting me to speak on this topic. But before we delve into apologetics, a question, just a general question. How many people had heard of apologetics before this topic was mentioned? Just raise your hand if you'd heard of apologetics before the topic was mentioned. Okay. How many know what apologetics is? 1, 2, 3. Quite a few. I was like you. I also got to hear of apologetics for the first time around 20 years ago in this hall. I was a second year. A gentleman by the name Ruben Kigami. I think you know Ruben. Yeah, he was invited here. At that time I was in charge of what is now here at the library. And when he came, I don't remember much of what he said. I just remember that I was starstruck. Ruben Kigami was here. You know, he sang 2 songs, he spoke. I can't remember what he said actually, to my eternal shame. But that is the first time I heard of apologetics. So my hope today is that I do better than Ruben Kigami did to me. I leave you with a better understanding of apologetics, and not just a mushy feeling that you are here today. So, apologetics. Normally, these apologetics forums are usually good when it's Q&A. And I hope there will be time for us to have a Q&A next time, because essentially we deal with questions that people have. That is what apologetics deals with essentially. But today I just want to give us an introduction into this subject, apologetics. Before I proceed, I think the media team were given something. I don't know if you are ready. I would like them to play with one for us before we begin. I hope everyone of us is able to hear at least the honor. Apart from when I'm upload this side.
What you reading?
The Bible.
You're reading?
Yeah.
Dude, why are you reading the Bible? Class?
No, I just...
Okay, so you're just reading the Bible. You're just sitting here in a coffee shop in the 21st century using state-of-the-art technology to read ancient myths for no reason whatsoever.
Well...
Tell me something. Are you one of these? Dude,
Hey, what's up?
what you reading?
The Bible.
You're reading the Bible?
Yeah.
Dude, why are you reading the Bible? For class?
No, I just...
Okay, so you're just reading the Bible. You're just sitting here in a coffee shop in the 21st century using state-of-the-art technology to read ancient myths for no reason whatsoever.
Well...
Tell me something. Are you one of those super religious people who thinks Jesus actually rose from the dead?
Well, I do believe that...
Do you also believe in the Easter Bunny, Santa Claus, unicorns, Bigfoot? Ever been abducted by aliens? And do you buy into all those other ancient myths about dying and rising gods invented by primitive nomadic tribes back in the Bronze Age?
No.
Okay, so what's the difference between Jesus rising from the dead and all those other fairy tales?
Here's the difference. My belief in the resurrection of Jesus is rational. It's based on historical facts.
Facts? What facts?
Well, first, Jesus died by crucifixion.
Whoa, hold on. We don't even know if Jesus existed. Why should I believe your facts?
Well, because the 5 facts I'm going to give you are backed by so much historical evidence that most professional critical scholars who study the subject accept them as true. That includes skeptical atheist scholars.
Okay, so Jesus was a guy who actually existed and then got himself killed. So what?
That's the first fact. Second, his disciples were convinced that he rose from the dead and appeared to them. Third, Paul, a sworn enemy of the early Christians, suddenly became a Christian. Fourth, Jesus' skeptical brother James also became a Christian. And fifth, the tomb where they put Jesus' body was empty.
And those are well-established historical facts.
Right, but you can't just leave it there. These facts demand an explanation. Otherwise, you've got a big hole in human history.
Okay, here's an explanation. They all lied. It was a conspiracy, the most monumental prank ever perpetrated. His followers stole his corpse from the tomb and then started telling everybody he was alive.
That's the conspiracy theory. The problem is it doesn't explain the facts. How do a few spineless fishermen, cringing in fear for their lives, subdue a bunch of well-armed, professional Roman guards, roll away a 2-ton stone, steal a body, then hide it from a city swarming with people trying to find it? And why would they do it? The disciples had absolutely nothing to gain by lying about Jesus' resurrection. In fact, they were persecuted, and we have good historical evidence that 5 of them were martyred because of their claim that Jesus rose from the dead. Apparently not a single one of them ever recanted. People don't willingly die for something they know isn't true. They were there. They knew whether it was true or not.
All right, another theory. The disciples thought they saw Jesus alive after he died, but it was just wishful thinking. They were stressed and just kind of hallucinating.
The hallucination theory also lacks explanatory power. 500 witnesses saw Jesus at the same time, and the disciples touched him. Psychologists have shown that hallucinations don't work like that, nor does this explain the empty tomb.
Okay, look, maybe there's some other explanation, but the bottom line is dead people stay dead. Rising from the dead would be a supernatural event, a miracle, and science has proven that miracles don't happen.
Oh, really? When did that happen?
I don't know. I just kind of heard it somewhere.
Science has not disproven miracles. In fact, that would be impossible.
Why?
Science deals exclusively with natural phenomena, physical matter and material processes, right?
Yeah.
But a miracle, by definition, is not a natural phenomenon. It's supernatural.
So
a supernatural event would lie outside the boundaries of science. It's logically impossible for science to throw out any hypothesis that lies outside its boundaries.
why have I never heard this stuff before?
I don't know. Maybe because it's scary?
Scary.
Yeah. As long as Jesus rising from the dead is just a fairy tale, like Santa Claus and unicorns, it doesn't threaten my little world. But if it's a fact, if he actually did rise from the dead, that's huge. It's a total game changer. And that's why it's so hard to think about it objectively.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Big whoa.
Example of what we do in apologetics. We try to answer questions about the Christian faith from people who have genuine questions and from others who really just don't like Christianity. They are not the same. They are not the same. Not everybody who is not a Christian is anti-Christian. There are people who are just genuinely lost. They genuinely have questions that they need answers for. What you've seen is one of the challenges we face with modernity. With the increase of internet and YouTube, you will encounter people who say Jesus never existed. He never existed. They will tell you that. And they'll ask you, can you prove that Jesus existed outside the Bible? Can you do that? Is there evidence that Jesus existed outside the Bible? Can you prove that Jesus actually died? Some actually say he never died. Can you prove that he resurrected? What you've seen is a 4-minute clip trying to deal with the historicity of Jesus, the fact that Jesus was a historical figure, that he lived, he died, and he resurrected. 5 minutes to just try and do that. An example of what apologetics attempts to do. Our verse today was 1 Peter 3:15 in ESV. It says, "But in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks you for a reason for the hope that is in you. Yet do it with gentleness and respect." One of the principles I think I shared with you when I was here last in reading the Bible is to always understand the context. What is going on? Muktadha wa Dondoo, if you remember your high school literature. We are reading chapter 3 of 1 Peter. What is going on in 1 Peter chapter 3? Paul is writing to believers and advising them on how to live in a world with non-believers. That is what Paul is trying to do in chapter 3. He begins by addressing women who are married to non-believers. How should they conduct themselves so that they can be faithful witnesses to their husbands in their home? Then he moves to husbands and advises them on how to live with their wives as Christ would have them do. Before we come to verse 15, where he gives general advice to Christians on how to live with others who ask questions about their faith. That is where we get verse 15. That is what is going on. He is speaking to Christians about living with non-Christians. So if you are going to interact with non-Christians, which I believe we do every day in our lives, in class, in matatus, in hotels, in our hostels where we are staying, you are interacting with non-Christians. 1 Peter 3:15 applies to you. So what does Paul say? He says, begin. This is where it all begins. By honoring Christ as Lord in your heart. As holy. It begins in your heart. The second is that you always be prepared. Preparation is something you do ahead of time, before an event. It is not something that you do last minute. I know we like to do last minute cramming, last minute assignments, rushing all over the place. That is not how you're going to live as a faithful witness. If you are unprepared, when these questions come from believers and from non-believers, they will find you unprepared. You need to be prepared to make a defense. The Greek word that is variously translated in our English Bibles as defense, and NIV translates it as answer, is apologia in Greek. Apologia. This is where we get the English word for apology. But the English word for apology has very little to do with the original Greek from where it came from. Modern English, to say apology is to say I'm sorry, is to feel remorseful and be grateful over things you have done wrong. But in the original Greek, what linguists here, I think School of Education is still here, what linguists call etymology, in its roots, an apology in Greek means to put forward a formal defense. To put forward a formal defense. Another one that we have read, this should be the second part of the sentence, to anyone who asks for a reason. The word is reason. In Greek, the word is logon, where we get logos or knowledge, where we get the word logic in English. In this context, if we combine these two words, Paul is asking us, one, to prepare, to put forward a formal defense that makes sense. It makes sense. It appeals to reason and to logic. One of my greatest challenges with Christians is we believe we do not need knowledge. I don't know how we got to that conclusion, but it breaks my heart that Christians, sad to say, we are ranked amongst the most ignorant people, even of our own Bible. We have convinced ourselves somehow that as long as we believe in God, it is okay. You know? And anybody who has a question or anything that appeals to our minds is unnecessary or ugly knowledge. I don't know where we got that understanding. Let me take a small detour. Let's go to Hosea 4. This is a verse I'm sure we've read many times, many times. We can even recite it from heart. The famous verse we like reciting is Hosea 4:6. And we recite just the first part. Don't go to 4:6. Just go to Hosea 4. Just remember. We like reciting Hosea 4:6 part A, not even part B. But today let's put Hosea 4:6 in its rightful context and see what is happening. Hosea chapter 4. My Bible translation NIV has given it a title called The Charge Against Israel. Essentially, God is accusing Israel of something. This is what is going on in Hosea 4. Hear the word of the Lord, you Israelites. Because the Lord has a charge to bring against you who live in the land. There is no faithfulness, no love, no acknowledgement of God in the land. There is only cursing, there is lying and murder, stealing and adultery. They break all bounds, and bloodshed follows bloodshed. Before I continue, here's something that I want us to think about. Being Christians is very easy to get lost in religious activities. It is very easy to get lost in morning glory, in attending services, in reading the Bible, but we do that religiously. That is what Pharisees were doing, diligently. They had their timetable, they adhered to it. But notice, Christians are so faithful to do the religious things. We separate them with how we live our lives. That separation does not exist in the Bible. Whenever the Jews were lost, whenever they were unfaithful to God in worship, it manifested in how they lived their lives. So the best way to tell whether a people, even a nation, is okay with God is not in how many churches they build, how frequently they pray, how much they give in tithes and offerings. No. It is in how just the society is. How upright are they? How do they take care of the widows, the orphans, and the workers? That will tell you whether this worship they are doing is what the Bible calls empty noise to God, or it is true worship. Notice here, God is accusing the Jews of being unfaithful to Him. But how does it manifest? Murder, adultery. That is how it manifests. But these people are filling the temple. Remember what Jesus says? He goes to the temple and he sees it is alive, active, full of activity. But there is no God. When Jesus is casting the fig tree, it is the temple that Jesus is casting. He is saying, like the fig tree, you are full of leaves, but there's no fruit. Full of life, but there's no fruit. Within 30 years of Jesus' death and resurrection, the temple was no more. It was destroyed. Your faithfulness as a Christian will not be shown by how many times you attend morning glory. It will be shown by how faithful you are outside this community. We need you here to be encouraged. We need you here to learn. We need you here to pray together. But that is not the test of Christianity. That is not it. Verse 3. Because of this, the land dries up, and all who live in it waste away. The beasts of the field, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea are swept away. It manifests in reality. So when we separate the spiritual and the real, it blinds our eyes from hearing the messages God is saying. You don't need to be a prophet to hear God. All you need to do is observe what is happening around you faithfully and honestly. You will see and hear what God says. It will then send you in which prayer you are supposed to make. Is it repentance? Is it crying for your country? Is it thanksgiving? You will see from what is happening. Verse 4. But let no one bring a charge. Let no one accuse another. For your people are like those who bring charges against a priest. You stumble day and night, and the prophets stumble with you. When a nation is getting lost, not even the people who call themselves the people of God are spared. They generally tend to be lost alongside the people. Have you asked yourself why in the scripture whenever God wanted to restore Israel, he needed to raise a prophet outside the system? Elijah, huyo hata yuko karibu na capital city anamenyana na ng'ombe zake akipanda. He is called from there. Samuel has to be raised right from birth to come and speak to a foreign nation. Because the prophets and the priests are together with the people getting lost. But this is where I want us to emphasize. So I will destroy your mother. Who is saying this? Who is saying this? God. Most of us love reading, my people are destroyed. No. It is God who comes down to destroy a people who are not faithful in witnessing for you. A people who are not living righteous. A people whose lives are full of religious activity but no genuine fear of God. It is God himself who comes down to destroy you. And what does he do? He says, I will destroy your mothers. That is where life begins. That is where the next generation comes from. That is where the next generation is nature. This is a judgment that is meant to bring an end to Israel because of their unfaithfulness. Then the famous verse we like quoting. My people are destroyed from lack of knowledge. They are destroyed by God. And what is God saying? Because you have rejected knowledge, I also reject you as my priests. You cannot serve God if you are ignorant. You cannot. It doesn't work. I've been a Christian since I think I was in class 4 in primary school. Now, I think in February I celebrated 40 years. I assure you, you cannot serve God if you are ignorant. You cannot serve God if you are ignorant. 2 Timothy, the other verse we read today, says, study to show yourself a workman approved. Study. You people are scholars, you are in university. You know there's a difference between reading and studying. I was sharing with a friend yesterday who had received with Gabriel about my experience in Bible school and how much reading there was. In Bible school, you can end up in a class, you are alone with the lecturer. So at times, anakwambia, no, for tomorrow's class, I don't want to come to the office, let's meet at my place. So you go to his place, you sit at his table, and there are two of you. There was some reading assignment you were meant to do. If you had not done it, you can't hide. It is you and you. In Bible school, I learned what studying is. I wish I had time to go into that story. But studying is serious work. Spending time in the Word and in the writings of people who have gone before you. The witnesses of others who have gone before you. They have wrestled, they have been where you have been, they have written, they have said something about it. What can we learn? Let me go back to the topic today. Apologetics, therefore, can be understood in 3 areas. One, that we seek to provide reasons why Christianity is true. To provide reasons, that is one. 2, to communicate these reasons to the world. And 3, to do so in respect and gentleness. Dr. William Masea says apologetics seeks to make known the realities of God through reason and evidence. I have already shared my notes. They are with your readers. You can get them in soft copy, so don't worry. As long as you pay attention, what you manage to write is okay. But you'll get the soft copy. Apologetics is an attempt at resolving intellectual hindrances and challenges to the knowledge of God. We do this by putting forward reasons that help explain what we believe in. I was sharing with your chairman and he was telling me that this is Evangelism week, I think, and you are visiting people and you have encountered others who have done philosophy and they're asking you questions you cannot answer. Growing up, it wasn't that way. Most of Africa, you met people who believe in God. Or at the very least, they believe in the supernatural. The only question is which God? That is, I think, the question you are used to encounter. As time passes, you will now encounter people who don't believe in God. That number is going to increase. I was reading an article yesterday, and this is something that has been noted in the last, I think, 5 years or so, in Mount Kenya especially. There has been a revival in traditional African religion. I don't know if you've noticed it. And it's become so prevalent that it's now serious competition to Christianity in Central Kenya. So even as this Western form of unbelief is growing, others in Africa are going back to traditional African belief and rejecting Christianity. Some of these people have valid reasons. It shames me to say. The history of the church, even in our lifetime, is not clear. It's not rosy. Some of them have been in church and they are running away because of what they have experienced in church. Something we need to think about and do something. Once that is the primary field, what people think apologetics deals with, apologetics also deals with questions amongst believers. Most of us here don't have places where we can ask questions we have about Christianity. We can't. You go to your pastor, some of the answers you get, unajua hapa you are being managed. These answers don't make sense. But you have nowhere to go, so you live with those questions. In America, in the last 2 years, something has been happening, largely led by the bad involvement of the church in American politics. There is a category of Christians who are calling themselves the constructors. They have looked at what is happening in the church. They have concluded that this is not the Christianity I see in the Bible. And they have walked away. Some have walked away to a purer form of Christianity. Sadly, a big number have walked away and left Christianity altogether. So what we do as Christians, how we live as Christians, does have an impact. If you go online, you will encounter these people. They have left the faith because of that. We need to be able to answer those questions amongst ourselves so that we can grow each other better in the knowledge of God. Christian apologetics covers many fields. You have the Bible, which is the area that I specialize in, Bible and doctrine. You have philosophy. Most of these questions are philosophical. You have comparative religion. Essentially, what do other faiths believe in? And not just other faiths, what do other Christians believe in? I remember I was in Bible school at one point and I was doing those very lengthy assignments that keep you awake till 6 in the morning. And in the background I had YouTube and I came across some very nice worship music that was playing automatically and moving to the next song. And I didn't pay attention. So I did my homework, my assignment. And at around the time I was done and I wanted to sleep, I decided, let me find out who these singers are, because I need to look for them next time I need such music. And when I went there, I found at the bottom, they were calling themselves something Unitarian Church. Unitarian. They don't believe in the Trinity. But they sing very nice worship. If you speak to a Mormon and a Jehovah's Witness, they will speak as if they believe in the Trinity. But if you pay close attention, you'll discover that their Trinity is not our Trinity. So you also need to be careful when you're engaging with other people who claim to be Christians. We also deal with history. There are many things that are said about what the church supposedly did and didn't do. We need to learn our history. And then, of course, science, amongst many things. What is true in apologetics is that it refines your faith. It draws you closer to God as you know God intellectually and you know His truths. Apologetics is not a new thing. It's become rather common these days, but it's not a new thing. Right from the patriarchs, and by patriarchs I'm talking about King Abraham, King Isaac and Jacob, to the prophets, to the apostles, King Paul, apologetics has been happening. When Paul is going to the temples of the Greek Apollos and spending there over a year explaining to them what Christianity is. He says, I've seen you've written that this is a temple dedicated to an unknown God. I have come to tell you about that unknown God. That is apologetics that Paul is engaging in. Reasoning with them on their times, bringing them to what the truth is. After the apostles, you have people like Justin Martyr. This guy was a Roman pagan who converted to Christianity. He wrote what is considered the first apology post-Christianity, post-Jesus, after King Jesus. He wrote that apology to a Roman emperor, Roman Antonius Pius, in 150 AD. This was a time when Christians were heavily persecuted. To be a Christian was worse than to be Mungiki. If you could identify that this brother was a Christian, you got half his wealth, and the brother would be killed. And I'm not just talking being hanged. You would be thrown to lions. In Rome, at one point, a certain Roman emperor used Christians as torches. Unafungwa, unapakwa taa, unawashwa so that people can walk at night. Christians were so persecuted that they hid in what were called catacombs. Catacombs were a system of underground caves where people used to bury their people. But that is the only place where Christians could go and hide and not be found. So at this time, Justin Martyr writes to the emperor, explaining to him what Christianity is about. This one I'd like you to respond to. There are a few things that Christians have been accused of. One of the things that they were accused of was cannibalism. Christians were accused of eating human flesh. Who can explain why they were accused of eating human flesh? You can guess. Why? Yes?
I can try.
Yes?
Because when Jesus says that his body is the bread of life and his blood, they should drink the blood and eat his flesh.
It's essentially the Lord's table. That is what was being understood as Christians are cannibals. So Justin Martyr writes to the emperor to explain to him what is going on. They were also accused of killing babies. Yeah? They were accused of killing babies. I think in modern times we follow these debates, largely American debates about abortion, isn't it? The fights against abortion, what time, who has the right, all those things. These things are fairly new. Actually, we have made very, very big progress. 200 years ago and behind, killing anything that could not sustain itself was very common. Very, very common. Abortion was kawaida, routine. Mtoto anazaliwa anatupwa. It was routine. Especially the girl child. You get a child, it's a girl, you don't want the girl, throw them katakataka. So what Christians used to do when they became believers, they would go and pick these babies. And because at that time, the belief in infant baptism was very strong, they would go and baptize the babies. And what do they say in baptism? You have died, and now you are. So somebody out there who doesn't understand is thinking, this guy is a killing. Christians were also accused of incest. This one I need an answer from you. Why? Can you guess why? Yes?
They call each other brothers and sisters.
Call each other brothers and sisters. Then you're getting married to brothers and sisters. Some of the issues we have is just pure misunderstanding. Pure not understanding the language other people use. So just basic explanations of what is going on helps clear out many of these things that are there. St. Athanasius in the 4th century fought against the Arian heresy. The Arian heresy was a belief. It's actually very prevalent today, even in our time. It was fought and quashed at some point during the Council of Nicaea. It was a belief that Jesus was not God. That Jesus was the first among his creation. But he was not God. He was not co-equal. It was very famous, and many in the church believed it. Athanasius was a priest in the church, and he was kicked out because at some point, most in the church believed in this. And he stood firm and said, no. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Jesus is co-equal. He is not the first among his creation. He is at the very beginning of creation. So the things we take for granted, Christians have fought over long ago. Each generation faces their own questions to fight over. You will not face the same questions others faced. If you do, some of them have answers for you. But you will have questions that are purely, uniquely yours in this generation. Augustine of Hippo wrote a lot about apologetics. He wrote, and now that we have become very politically involved, I challenge you to find, if you want to talk seriously about Christianity and politics and governance, you need to read Augustine's book called The City of God. I think we live in a time when we have freedom of worship and religion, so we don't understand some of these things.
Is God good? If he is, why is there suffering and evil? Let's assume for the moment that God is all-powerful. This means that God can do anything that is logically possible. So he can create galaxies and subatomic particles and rainforests and you. But God cannot do what is logically impossible. He cannot make a square circle or a one-ended stick. So can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it? No. So what if, when God created human beings, he wanted them to be free? Freedom's a good thing, but if humans are to be free, they cannot be forced to obey God. Because freedom without choice is like a square circle. It's a logical contradiction. No choice, no freedom. God didn't want robots. He wanted real people. The first humans endowed with the awesome power of free choice abused their freedom. The tragic consequences of their bad choice and our bad choices ripple across the world. God is responsible for the fact of freedom, but humans are responsible for their acts of freedom. But let's remember, we don't suffer alone. God will put an end to suffering and evil. And God became a man to suffer with us. God is good, and He wants real people like you to know Him. But the free choice is yours.
The questions that you wrestle with in apologetics. Other questions that are recent in our times. I spoke about the rebirth of African traditional religion, which most of you are going to have to deal with, especially when you live here. The issue of relativism. There is nothing true. Everything is subjective. Everything is what I make it to be. Issues to do with evolution, science and faith. Another one that is becoming more common is gender fluidity. I can decide tomorrow who I am. Now in Canada, I think they've gotten to over 70 genders that you can identify with. Those are issues that are in Athanasius never dealt with, that we have to deal with and give a Christian response to. We have an increase in artificial intelligence. What are the implications for this for Christians? There are many things that you need to deal with. Apologetics uses several tools in doing its work. We have experienced what let me call them clips. We do apologetics using clips. We do apologetics using debates. You invite a believer and an unbeliever and you give them a topic and you ask them to defend their positions. You have lectures like this one. You have essays. We write to newspapers, we write to blogs and give a Christian view of what is happening. We have podcasts. I don't know if you know what podcasts are. We have books. We have movies. How many of you love movies? How many of you have watched Lord of the Rings? Oh, you watoto sana. You need to watch it. It's a work written by a Christian. Try and explain Christian beliefs. But it's a movie most people enjoy without seeing what is being said. There's another one called Tales of Narnia, which is a movie to explain a Christian worldview. There are many avenues we use for apologetics. Now, I want to make a few comments here. Some of these questions are heavy. Some of you, for the first time you encounter them, they will shake. They will shake. So you need to be careful where you are getting your answers. I work with Apologetics Kenya. You can get us online on all platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. I think the other day we opened a TikTok account for Apologetics Kenya. We can guide you where to get these resources that will explain to you what the truth is. Second, be very careful of, I don't know what term to use, online experts. Let me call them that. There are people who are very famous and popular for saying things, and people believe them because they appear to be authorities. There is a scientist who was behind the downgrading of planet Pluto. When you were in school, you were told Pluto was a planet. Then sometime, I think in 2015, it was declared to be a non-planet. Do you know the scientist behind it? He's a gentleman called Neil deGrasse Tyson. Very famous. He says very many things about Christianity that people assume to be true that are not true. One of the famous things he says is that Christianity held behind science. You know, in the dark ages that we just said you believe and therefore we have inhibited science from advancing. There is no true historian who agrees with that point of view. None. But it has been repeated so many times, and because we don't do our research, we have believed it to be true when it is not. Education, as we know, is not possible without Christianity. Hospitals, as we know right now, not possible without Christianity. Science, as we know, not possible without Christianity. But you need to know your history before you can know these people. So be very careful when listening to these people. Don't pay too much attention to them. There's another resource to share with you. This gentleman is a non-believer. He's an atheist. He doesn't believe. But he grew so concerned because atheists was spreading so many lies, and he's a historian, that he started a website called History for Atheists to educate his own non-believers on the truth, because they were lost on so many things. I'd recommend, if you meet an atheist or if you need resources to do with the historical questions of Christianity and its interaction with science, you can go to his website, History for Atheists. He's an unbeliever, but he knows his history with facts, not stories that have been told so many times that are lies. No, history and facts. So as we do apologetics, we need to remember that ultimately it's the Holy Spirit that convicts people of sin. Yours is just to be a faithful witness. We need to be led by genuine love for people. We need to rethink essentially how we do evangelism. Do evangelism built on relationships. How many of you have friends who are not believers? Genuine friends who you truly love them and you wish the good for them, and you sit down and talk about classwork and talk about politics and talk about movies and sports. Genuine friendships. No motives, nothing. You are not friends because you want to evangelize them. No, you are just friends. Let them see the Christ in you. When you're doing apologetics, never lose sight that you are dealing with people. Most people will raise questions, but the real questions they have, they will never ask. They will never ask. They will ask you the questions they want you to think are their questions. But most people, the reasons they have, the struggles they have against the Christian faith are personal. Some pastor somewhere did something very bad to them, and they hold that against Christianity. We have, in the 90s and early 2000s, we remember the scandals that hit the Catholic Church about child abuse. In the last 5-10 years, it has exploded in what you would call the evangelical church. Scandals every other day. One of the best apologists of our time, I think most of you know him, Rabbi Zacharias, he died 2-3 years ago. In the wake of his death are sex scandals. What this man, apparently a servant of God, was doing to him. So people have personal reasons against the Christian faith. And yet here you are coming to answer intellectual reasons against the faith. You need to be wise to know when the questions they are asking are not the real questions. The only way you can know this is if you live with people. In time, you will get to know, shida huyu. It's not even that Jesus didn't exist. No, shida huyu ni aliona brother so and so kwa pulpit siku moja aliongea ujinga. Ikamchokora na kumtoa. So you need to know what you're doing. Apologetics is a lifetime of learning. But it's a work adventure. Let me conclude by this. The words of Jude chapter 3 verse 3. It says this. Beloved, while I was very diligent to write to you concerning our common salvation, I found it necessary to write to you, exhorting you to contend earnestly for the faith which was once and for all delivered to the saints. There will be a contending for the faith. There will be a time to contend for the faith. Don't let it go. Always remember, as believers, that the greatest apologetic you can ever live, you can ever give anyone, is a life of faithful love for Christ and for others. That is the greatest apologetic you can ever give. It is never the questions you are able to answer. Those are helpful and they have their place. But if you live a life that is marked with hypocrisy, if you live a life that is marked with dishonesty, if you live a life that is unfaithful to the call of Christ, that you love God and you love your neighbor, you cannot convince anyone of the truthfulness of the gospel message. That is the greatest thing. Let us pray. Our Father, we honor you this morning. You are the author of truth. You are wisdom. You are knowledge. You are understanding. We thank you, Lord, for the call that you've given each and every one of us. That we should have to be prepared to give an answer and a response for the faith that we believe in. The reason for how we live our lives. I pray this day that as you open our hearts and our minds to the understanding of this great call, that Jesus, you shall equip us, you shall give us an energy and a zeal to search hard after you, to seek you while you can be found. We thank you, Lord, for these dear ones who are here in their young age. I commit their lives to you again today, Lord. The purposes you have for each and every one of them, Jehovah, let them be fulfilled. Let them be your witnesses in this generation, Lord. Let them be found faithful when times are shaky and the winds blow. Let them be firmly planted on the rock, the truth that is in Jesus. Father, I pray, let them grow to